Back there, if anyone wants to make a donation, you can use that code on the table or come see me. We can make a seven donation that way. We have a service commitment every Sunday night in Quakertown at a treatment facility. If you want to get into service, come there and see what it's all about. Be on the front lines of recovery. Come see us. Always looking for people to go out there and share a message of hope, or sit and listen and just see what it's all about. So with that, we have the world's greatest chair lady, all the way from South Quebec, Canada. So we're ready to give Kara a warm welcome.
Good evening, y'all. My name's Kara, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. Welcome home, everybody. You can tell by my accent I am from Quebec. It's just a running joke. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. and speaker at 8:30 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God, reliance, and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Welcome. Florence? Welcome. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Our sister group is a Big Book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. just up the street at Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street, Doylestown. Coffee is on at 6:15. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. See Please Me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford them, put in the jar in the back marked CDs and donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed and share upcoming events and meetings. Now I would like to introduce a good friend of mine, Brian. He's going to come up and read Just for Today, our prayer of recovery. Let's give Brian a warm welcome. Woo!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. And this is Just for Today, a prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And with that, help me give a warm welcome to my good friend Matt. He's going to come up here. He's going to read the AA preamble.
Good evening. My name is Matt. I'm an alcoholic. All right. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues, fees, or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Welcome home. And next we have the 12 steps. I'm sorry, I forgot. Michelle. I'm sorry, Michelle.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. These are the 12 steps of recovery. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I'd like to bring Kara back up, my good friend.
The seventh tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big book CDs, events and workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, I'd like to introduce the speaker as a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Let's give Kristen R. from Ventnor, New Jersey. She came all the way to represent that group, Connect the Dots group. Let's give her a warm welcome, y'all.
Good evening. I'm an alcoholic and my name is Kristen. Thank you for the honor and privilege in asking me to be of service and for the pleasure of being on a road trip that I haven't been on for quite a year in AA. My sobriety date is May 25th, 2017. I was a late bloomer becoming an alcoholic, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience, strength, and hope. So, grew up in Atlantic County, New Jersey. I'm the fifth out of 6 kids, and since the day I was born, my life has been shaped by alcohol, by those people around me. I never knew the impact that it had on me until I got older, but I share some of my childhood because being raised in that type of household, I definitely had very strong convictions of what I was not going to be like. And my convictions were no match for alcohol. My older brother is one of us, as is my younger sister. My parents are daily drinkers, but all that I learned from alcohol growing up is that I didn't like the behaviors that I saw. My father was a Jekyll and Hyde drinker. You never knew what was going to happen when you're at the dinner table, and you prayed that it wasn't you that was going to get it. And the version that my father would give you, he was very good at cutting you apart with his words. Anything that was wrong with you, that was a problem with you, that you had shared with him, he would cut you right to the knees, and it was so painful. And at times it would get violent with my father. My father would have no recollection of the things that he had done to me, and how we handled things in our house is we just didn't talk about it. It never happened. My dad would come in my room the next day and say, "What's that shiny thing you want?" And he would buy it for me, and we would never speak about it again. I was raised with my beliefs, which I had thought that my parents had wanted, and my beliefs now have changed, because the one thing, once you get clear-minded, your autobiography of self changes, because more and more is revealed. I thought what my parents were teaching me was, you never can be too thin, too pretty, or have enough money. And those were the motivating forces. And that's all I would focus on. I gratefully was blessed with education. My father is a high school man. He wanted all his girls, there's 5 girls in my house, he wanted us to be able to have a ways to make our own means. He never wanted us to have to depend on anybody if we needed to. I didn't look at it as a gift then, it was just something that I needed to do. I'm forever thankful that I got that gift of education, because it surely helped me out when I got sober. My drinking history, being younger, did I drink when I was in high school? I did, but I never obsessed over a drink. I was definitely a driven person, and one of the things I wanted to do, I wanted to get as far away as possible from my family. I didn't know the exact reasoning why, but it was just in me. So I went to college in Rhode Island, I went to grad school in Texas. I firmly wanted to live in Texas, but I met the man that I was going to marry the summer before at a bar in New Jersey, Maynard's, and I came back to New Jersey. And my ex-husband, he came from a very similar background. He had a lot of drugs and alcohol in his upbringing, and we were going to change the world. We were going to do different. We were going to make things happen, and we were going to do it on our own. I came from a privileged household, but I wanted to make my own money, so we were driven. So how do you create that dream? You know, we create these visions of self, of what's our story going to be? What is my life supposed to look like? I didn't know at the time, but every part of my story, I had something I expected to receive by achieving it. So if I make that money, I'm going to feel a certain way. If I marry that man, I'm going to feel a certain way. If I'm going to be successful, I'm going to get this. I'm going to have those kids, they're going to be perfect. What ended up happening is I achieved everything in the story that I told myself that I would need to make myself feel. I didn't know how I wanted to feel, but I wanted to feel a way that I wasn't. I now know what I was chasing was serenity and peace. And it was always temporary solutions for me. I was 37 years old. In my mind, I had finished everything in my mind that I was supposed to do to achieve that serenity. And I'm still discontent with self. There's nothing more I can do to change myself. Because I say now, I forever suffered from an identity crisis. I never wanted to be me. I always wanted to be different. I had lack of love for self. So I'm 37. You picture the best life possible, I was living in it. Married to my husband, 2 beautiful kids, plenty of money, maxed out in my career, was running businesses with my husband, and yet I woke up every single morning not wanting my life. And there was nothing more in the exterior way that I could think of to make me feel okay. And what happened? A drink presents itself, one that I had numerous times before, but this time it had a different effect on me. That one drink made me, okay, I can handle living this life. If you had told me that one drink 7.5 years later would have demolished that whole entire world I just spoke to you about, I never would have believed you. The things I did behind a drink, my memory is very lacking for about 5 years. You know, I can tell you that I would get up in the morning and the first thing on my mind is, where am I going to get that next drink? I definitely manage, it says in the big book, we try to manage the people around us, the characters. I managed my whole entire household. I would have my husband somewhere, I have my kids this place, always setting up the drink. And I didn't realize that until I got sober. You know, I was so disconnected from everything in my life. I know that now because now I do have true relationships. It was like when I got sober, I didn't even know anybody because I had no authentic relationships. So the drinking begins, and I would say almost immediately I was hiding it. At that time, our household was not one that there was even alcohol in it. So I started introducing alcohol into the household, you know, encouraging my husband to have a drink with me, and he really wasn't. He was a drinker when I met him, but he never drank when we got married. So from the beginning, I was hiding it. Like, that's a problem. You know, why are you hiding it? I'm not asking myself those questions because I'm telling myself, and you know, it's working on my brain, I need this alcohol in order to continue to live the life I have. It was the only way I was going to get through it. So how did it start? You know, I would just come home and have a couple drinks. Then I'm shortening my workday so I can get home earlier before everybody else so I can drink some more. Then I'm going out and I'm having liquid lunches. You know, then I'm scheduling everything around so I don't even have to go to work. Because all I wanted to do was be alone and drink. I was an isolated drinker. I hid my drinking. You know, I kind of say like my drinking, you could tell how much I was drinking by the size of my purse I was carrying, because that's how I would carry the booze into my house. You know, wrapping the bottles in towels so it wasn't clanking around, hiding it all over the locations in my house. And that's what I did for about 4 years. All in the interim, I'm running a business, I'm a soccer mom, I'm a room mom, I'm a wife, but in form only. In form only. So after a couple years, alcohol wasn't working for me anymore. So in comes accelerants, other forms of alcohol. You know, and primarily that was so I could control and manage my drinking. Because I couldn't drink the way that I wanted to and suit up and show up for the responsibilities and titles that I had in my life. So then that behavior created a whole other slew of behaviors that I did not know that I was capable of doing. I'm an excellent criminal. I can break into your house, I can break into your car, and I'll rob exactly what I want from you. I would make friends with people, soccer moms or great partiers, I never knew it. And I would work my way to get invited to those houses to get what I needed. And it just kept increasing and increasing. I was never thinking about the consequences of being found out. I was a very well-respected woman in my community. People looked up to our family. We had our image that we had to uphold. And it just kept progressing. One of the things when I was growing up, I absolutely would not ever drive while intoxicated with my kids in my car. I was so firm about that because I am a child that knows the terror sitting in the backseat of a car driving while their dad's driving, and the utter horror of whether or not we're going to make it home. There was not a day in my drinking at one point that I could not drink in order to operate that vehicle. You know, there was always alcohol in the car. My youngest one would take a sip from my alcohol at times. She'd be like, that tastes funny. I mean, I had no concern, or I couldn't be concerned of whether or not I would get caught. You know, I traveled with those kids over and over again. I had a whole soccer team in my car. This disease had me jeopardizing so many people over and over again. The risks that were put out there, and out of God's grace, I did not hit anybody. I wasn't in any serious accidents. You know, pulled over numerous times by the police, and my position at that time in the community was one that I knew every single police officer in Cape May County. So if I was pulled over, I either knew the officer or I knew someone I could call to get me out that. You know, all the time the kids crying, utter embarrassment. I'm the mom that showed up drunk to pick up their kids from school. I was the spectacle. I think vividly this one time I went to pick up my oldest, and I was running late, of course, and I come in, and the look of horror on my daughter's face. We're walking out to my car, and the principal follows us out, and he's like, Miss, you know, I don't think you should drive. And I probably didn't say something nice to him, but I was like, you can't stop me. You can't stop me from driving. I get in the car, state troopers are behind me. Somehow I was driving okay enough. Nothing's happening in my mind. I stop, and then I pick up my younger one from parent pickup. Like, and my oldest daughter, Ava, in the car, just like shaking her head. My oldest daughter definitely suffered the brunt of this disease. They talk about that in how we traumatize our children without even knowing it. I definitely set out to be the best mother possible. I no doubt love my children, but this disease does not allow us to carry out that intent. Over and over again. One of my careers was I ran a domestic violence and sexual assault agency for 20 years. I repetitively, emotionally, and verbally, and sometimes physically abused my kids. That's the power of this disease. I have never emotionally, verbally, or physically abused my kids sober. But that was common occurrences. There was such a reverse of power with me and my oldest daughter that she eventually became the mother of me. That kid didn't know what to do. I wasn't thinking about when she had to go back to school the next day and being ridiculed by her friends because of her drunk mom showing up. I'm not capable of thinking of that. That was never my intent. My story of me being a mom was always to be one that was loving, better than my mom. And I could not do those things. So eventually, nothing was really working. I'm again still miserable. So I think I'm going to leave that husband. He's the problem. He's why I'm miserable. And I wasn't willing to do that. I had certain hopes. The story of me was my kids would go away to college. We have this beautiful house on the river. They would come back married with their kids, and we would have our grandchildren there. I wasn't willing to give up that story. And then it says in the big book, we are so detached from our loved ones that sometimes they seek elsewhere for love. And that's exactly what my ex-husband did. And when I found out this information, it wasn't like I was shocked or disappointed or even sad. It was like alcohol was like, you've been waiting for this opportunity. Now you can walk out that door. Alcohol makes the worst decisions for us. Alcohol told me to walk out that door, leave those kids, and in my mind, I'm like, now I'm going to be a single woman. Like, this is going to be great. Well, the debauchery of self that took place once I was a single woman was horrific, because now I'm drinking at bars. I was never a bar drinker, and the blackouts are intensing. Over and over again, I would come to not recognize the ceiling or the man next to me. Never stopped me from drinking. Wasn't a consequence enough. The only thing I ever cared about when I came to was, did I have enough alcohol to steady myself? That was my pure focus. So now clearly my life was becoming a little unmanageable. Are my nearest and dearest questioning me? I can't even tell you if they did, because it's such a blur still to this day. So I leave the husband. I'm living by myself, have the kids every other week. Definitely a marked progression of my disease at that time, because I didn't have my watchers all the time. My kids weren't watching me. My soon-to-be ex-husband wasn't watching me. I had a lot of freedom to do what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to do was drink. Shortly thereafter, I stopped showing up to work as much. I ran an agency. I'd been there for 18 years. And, eventually, you're not showing up to work catches up with you. And I had a staff that loved and cared me. They'd watched me going through the change for the last 6 years. And that was very confusing for a lot of people in my life, because they knew me a certain way, and then they knew me a way that was changing over 6 to 7 years. Because in their mind, I was that person, and now I'm this person. Who are they dealing with? I was very abusive to my staff. Didn't even know it. I would go around and threaten people that I would fire them if they didn't do what I said, or if that they said anything about my behaviors. That's not the kind of person I am. Alcohol morphs us to unnatural beings. It creates these characters of self that I didn't even think were possible of me being. That's what it does. And it does it while all the meanwhile telling us that we're not doing any of those things. That's the insanity. We can't see ourselves, other people can see ourselves, and if they say something to us, we easily talk our way out of it. I am an excellent manipulator. I can switch any argument back on you. And so that staff was concerned about me. So my bosses held a meeting. They told me to take a week off. They wanted to look into things. I am not thinking even remotely that I'm going to lose this job. In my mind, it was like February, it was March, I'm like December, I just got a really nice salary increase because my performance was outstanding. And what ended up happening was I went back to meet with them. Nope, did not prepare at all. Came to that morning in my truck. I had an hour to get down to where I worked, in and out in the whole entire meeting, but the end result was, you sign this, we won't talk about you, you don't talk about us, and they gave me a nice severance pay. And I was like, all right. Immediately alcohol was like, don't worry about it, a bigger and better job's waiting for you. It did not impact me whatsoever. It was later revealed to me in sobriety that I walked around my office building at the time crying, saying, I'm so sorry to every single one of my employees. You know, no recollection of this whatsoever. So, in a divorce, now the job's gone. Now I'm lying to my children that I still have this job. I'm still pretending to go to work when I have them. And my oldest daughter absolutely knew I was doing something and knew I was drinking, but she couldn't find it until she did. And it was a school day, and I would always have to get up an hour early to get myself well enough, drink enough alcohol to steady myself so I could operate that vehicle. And I go out into the living room, and my oldest daughter's sitting there just like she's a mom. And she had stopped calling me mom for a very long time at this time. And she's like, Kristen, I need you to sit down. I have something to show you. And she opens her phone, and she has all these pictures of alcohol. And I'm on my hands and knees begging her not to tell her father. Please don't tell your dad. Please don't tell your dad. You know, that kid tried for so long to protect me until she needed to do it to protect herself. And so that takes place. And then the next thing alcohol took was those kids. I had taken my youngest to soccer practice. Both my girls played travel soccer. And something happened from the soccer field to home. My oldest daughter was there. And what happened essentially was I threw those kids out. I threw trash bags at them, told them to pack their stuff, and they're going to go live with their father. And that's what they did. And that was in April of 2017. The real truth about that later was revealed to me by my older daughter. She had written a paper for school, and it was about when you're at a crossroads. And it was really at the crossroads of whether or not she was going to be willing to want me in her life or not. And in that essay, she described that last night. And that night ended with my hands around my daughter's throat, holding her over the front porch. I have no recollection whatsoever. You know, the mere fact that behind a drink, I can put my hands around my daughter's neck and not even recall it, that's this disease. You know, morphs us into creatures we weren't intended to be. Makes us violent individuals with a mind that can't remember what we had done. And all the meanwhile telling us everything is just fine. So now kids are gone. Prior to that, I had always lots of suicidal thoughts in my drinking. And it was either the kids would stop me from taking that action, or a drink would take it. You know, it says that in Bill's story as well. You know, everybody's jumping off, and, you know, he thinks about it too, but he takes a drink. Well, eventually that wasn't working for me anymore. Everything in my life, because alcohol can be quite cruel when it gives you moments of what your life used to look like. And then you can see where you're at in that moment, and it's vastly different. And you can't understand how it came to be. So I was ready to do it. I wanted out on this world. In my mind at that time, I had done so much damage that I could recall, and the ability to get back to once where I was not possible in my thinking. And quite honestly, I didn't know if I wanted to. So the next step is to what? To kill myself. And that's what I set out to do. And I first tried to self-injure myself with a knife, and that didn't work. Somehow I jump in my vehicle, drive up to some hotel in Hamilton, buy all the booze I could possibly need, and checked into some hotel, and my sole purpose was to not check out. And just being in that hotel room, and I kept coming to, and that's that horrible spot in your drinking that the only way you can stop thinking is by passing out. It doesn't work anymore. Like, you just want to pass out, and I just wanted to die. And I ended up being in that hotel for 5 days. I would think in my mind it was 2 days, and this is when God starts working through other people. And I didn't think this way when I first told my story, and it was explained to me when I first shared my story, the amount of God moments that I was not seeing, and that I was protected all the while I was drinking. And I thank God for that every single day. So a man that lived across the street from me, which I had broken into his house numerous times to steal alcohol, was concerned about how my place was left. There was broken glass in the driveway. So this elderly man takes enough action to contact my landlord. My landlord does some search to see my parents. My parents are in their 80s. They call my parents. My parents drive to Ocean City, file a missing persons report. And I'm somehow found in this hotel room 4 days after they file that report. Loud knock on the door. I was face down in that hotel room. And it was one of those knocks, if you don't open up, we're going to open it up. And I said words that alcohol would never let me say before. I need help. The amount of times in my drinking that I wanted to ask, alcohol would always mute those words. It was like, you can't let them know. If you let anybody know what you're about, you're going to lose A, B, C, and D. Well, I lost them anyway, and I definitely didn't have the courage to ask for help. Pride and ego kills you every single time. I was in that hotel room. I was willing to die rather than have anybody else think I wasn't what I thought I had portrayed to be. I wanted to go out as the great hero story. Look at this lady. She did all this good work. She was such a great girl. Kills herself. That I was okay with that story. I was okay with that story. I opened the door and I identified myself, and they said, "What do you need?" And it was like just a wave came over me, and I was like, I need help. And that was on May 24th, 2017. My sobriety date is May 25th, 2017. And I go from ambulance to the hospital, already being so selfish. My parents, it's 2 o'clock in the morning now. My parents are in the waiting room. The nurse comes in, and they're like, "Your parents would like to come in and see you." I'm like, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to see anybody. I was bloated. I was bitten up. I was seizing up. I was not a pleasant sight. I wasn't thinking about the fact that my parents just wanted to see their child alive. That's all they wanted. And that didn't happen for them then. So I ended up being there, and I had to fight for myself to get into, it's called One Pine, which is like our mental health institute. They would look at my background. I clearly was unraveling. Was I still thinking of killing myself? I wasn't. However, I was getting these thoughts to say, if I'm released, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I ended up spending 7 days in a mental health facility. That was a first for me. Coming apart, telling my sister when she visited me that I shouldn't be here, and she's like, "You absolutely should be here." My lovely parents coming and visiting me every single day there. My parents are very great people. You know, I still envision my mom and my dad coming through those doors to visit me at One Pine, and like them just trying to keep it together. You know, to see their daughter be that way. My mother saying to me, "I never thought it would be you. I never thought it would be you." So I was there, and then I ended up going to the Seabrook. So I went to Seabrook for 30 days. That was all a complete blur. You know, I had a mind badly burnt by alcohol. I had such a deep fog. I was absolutely so concerned I was not going to have the ability to read again. I mean, I would look at the words in these books that they would give me. Everything was not, I couldn't register. I had the inability to compute whatever information that was presented to me. So the big things that I recall from being at Seabrook is, at that time I was still on many prescriptions, because, you know, as an alcoholic, you have a lot of illnesses that occur that you need medication for. And I was just kind of told at the time, I had this thought, why don't you go ask the psychiatrist if you need to be on these meds? Because the truth is, for 7.5 years, I had been chewing or drinking something. I had no idea what my baseline was. I did not know what my system was without anything in it. And I asked. And thankfully, this man said, sure, we'll wean you off, and let's see how you are in 6 months. And I've been practicing complete abstinence from that point. The second thing that I recall from being there is, I always get choked up on this, is the letters that I received from my daughters. My daughters are 13 and 10 at the time. My oldest daughter is like, Kristen, I wish you had died. That's where she was at on that. My little one, Mommy, do you know what the kids at school are saying about me? Because I became the great fodder at school. You know, the big deal that crashed. My kids found out about me from their schoolmates, not from their father. Their father was questioned over and over again by the state police because they thought he had something to do with me missing. The police were waiting for my daughters when they got off the bus to question them about my whereabouts. All these storylines that I could not possibly have created with my wildest imagination were created by alcohol. I did not give alcohol permission for those stories to be created. I was an unwilling participant in all of it. I had no power to do what I wanted to do when I was under the lash of alcohol. And, you know, that was rough. You know, your mind starts clearing up a little bit and you start seeing all this wreckage. You know, it's like, how do I come back from this? How do I come back from this? And not only how do I come back from it, it's like, do I want to come back from it? Do I want to come back from it? I struggled with that for a long time in sobriety. Do I want to live this life as it is? Why? Because I absolutely could not accept my life as it was. I wasn't looking at that I had a chance of something. I only wanted a chance of what I wanted. And what I wanted was that life back. I wanted those kids back, you know. And I went into sobriety as my first sponsor, Rest Her Soul, said, you cannot have expectational sobriety. You can't be getting sober to get things back. Some things may have been taken that aren't meant to be returned. And in my mind, I said, well, that is not going to be okay with me if those kids don't come back in my life. And I had initially believed, you know, I get sober, I'm going to get the job, I'm going to buy the house, the kids are going to come running. None of that stuff happened. I had no movement for almost my first year of sobriety. And my sponsor said the reason was, obviously, because it's God's plan, but I had a lot of unlearning to do, and I had a lot of learning to do. And that was a very true statement. I thank God every single day that He kept me willing through that first year. I saturated myself in meetings. I mean, I'm grateful to live in an area that you can be at 6 or 7 meetings every single day if you choose to do so. And that's where I chose to do. And I felt safe there. I wasn't comfortable walking around in the community. I didn't want anybody to see me. I had so much shame, remorse, and guilt. I was scared of my own shadow. I didn't want to run into any person that might know the true story of me, because I was naked now. I didn't have a husband to hide behind. I didn't have my job to hide behind. I didn't have my kids to hide behind. I didn't have my money to hide behind. I was at pure, all scorecards red 0. I was like, mine were in the way negatives. And I just started doing the work. You know, I had to really trust the process. And those suicide thoughts, they were with me for the first 3 years. You know, they just kept coming back in. And I had a sponsor that just said, you just got to trust. You got to trust God has a plan for you. And I'm still waffling as to whether or not there's a God or not. You know, I can see clearly now how God played in my life over and over again. But it wasn't until people pointed out to me where he was or who he came through with the people that he presented. So after my first year of sobriety, you know, I went through a divorce. I had bankruptcy. I got my truck repossessed. I wasn't able to pay any bills. I didn't have the ability to afford my own housing, and those kids are still not willing to see me. But I kept showing up, and I kept trusting. And I started to see my children, first supervised with a therapist. First time I saw my youngest one, if you could see that child and what alcohol had done to her, it ripped my heart apart. Ripped my heart apart. And things were kind of going good for a couple years with my kids. My kids were never willing to live with me again. They would never go to my place of being, and I had to accept that. You know, this wasn't about me anymore. This is like, what's in the best interest of my children? Like, I couldn't be selfish. I had to accept where my kids were. I had to learn that they were going to be on their own journey, and I had no control over that. The only thing I could do is present the best version of myself every time that I was presented. And things were going good. You know, the first 3 years, I definitely didn't have home stability. I worked, I saved money, my credit was shot. During my 4th year of sobriety, things were going good with those kids. They did tell me that they would absolutely, under no circumstances, ever live with me. And I made the choice that I was just going to rent a 1-bedroom place, because the mere thought of having a house with 2 other bedrooms that laid empty wasn't a good option for me. But I gave them the caveat, you know, of course, if you ever change your mind, I'll get that house immediately. So I'm in my 4th year of sobriety. I'm working a job that's definitely below my skill level. I was putting out resumes. The thing is, you got to do the work. God's just not going to show up and present you that job. I had to keep my feet on the ground, and that's what I did. And he opens up this beautiful job back into the nonprofit world, and provides services, grief and trauma services to children. There's no irony at all in where God places us. And exactly at that same time that I get this job, both those kids say to me, we don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. It's easier for us if you're not in my life. So in the big book, it tells us, if we fail to enlarge or perfect our spiritual fitness, we will not be able to survive the certain trials and low spots that are certain to come. Well, this definitely was a low spot, and I was fighting and resisting it every single step of the way. I couldn't understand why it wasn't going, my way? How could this possibly be part of God's plan for me, that I'm not supposed to be a mother to those kids? It was rough. a lot of pain and suffering, a lot of praying, a lot of accepting, and then like, why would you give me this job that helps trauma and grief for children? And then he shows me one day, because there's a lot of kids that come in there that receive services because they lost their parents to this disease. And like, my kids still got a shot. I'm still here. And not willing to take that chance or want from them when it comes to be. That's what I can do today. I can preserve that chance for when they want to. So that takes place, and what else does it say in the big book? When all else fails, rigorous work with another alcoholic. I rigorously started working with other alcoholics. And I started to pray and ask God to please give me direction. Is this really where He wants me to be? Does He want me to be a woman without her children? What is my role? What is my purpose? Because my purpose and my story of self always had those kids with me. So once again, I have to unwrite my version and allow in God's version. If we believe that God is the story writer for us, I have to stop inserting my own paragraphs. I have to let Him do the writing. I have to suit up and show up and serve the direction that God gives me. And the purpose for me today is to be doing exactly what I'm doing in this moment. My dark past is my greatest asset in God's hands. It's everybody in this room's greatest asset, if we choose to use it. By sharing my story, by sharing my hope, I have the potential of averting misery and death for others. What a powerful gift we are given. We all have that gifted to us if we work this program. So that's my purpose. My oldest daughter just turned 21 on this past Monday. And I will say, in time, God has definitely healed my heart. Does it still hurt? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to be with my children. It's just not where I'm meant to be at this time. So each year, I continue to do this. That loss of self gets smaller. My one sponsor used to always tell me, if you're going to focus on that one piece, it's going to ruin all the greatness that's all around. If we focus on that one piece that is not right in our life, and that's the only thing we hone in on, we miss all the greatness that has been gifted. So I learned how to do that. I didn't focus on that one piece. I looked at all the greatness that has been gifted to me. I was able to get financially sound again. How wonderful, I didn't think I had to redo it anything when I came into the rooms at 47. I'm 54 right now. Our life only stops going if we let it. So I want a lot out of life. I'm definitely about next level living. God gifts us these bumps of freedom. They say in the room, stay until the miracle happens. I'm like, stay until the next one, and the next one after that. Because I keep getting them. And it has nothing to do with my exterior. What it has to do is with this elevation of self. I've definitely had a radical change to my thinking. They say in the big book that if we do this work, everything about us will change. How we look at fellow humans will change. How we look at God will change. How we look at our circumstances will change. I add, how I look at myself has changed. I'm no longer a victim, because I was always a victim of myself. I have created my victim by my thinking. It's always been my thinking. You know, alcohol was a mere symptom. That thinking was well into place before I consumed that drink. It's always been this. And I needed to be able to see where those perceptions were false, where I had created truth out of lies. You know, we are what we believe, so I have to check what I'm believing. And that's been changing. You know, to be able to wake up in the morning and no longer dread being me, to know that I have a purpose, to know that I have a purpose. Whew. You know, I have something to give today. I'm no longer in trying to take from everybody. I'm no longer living in a transactional world. I give to you, you must give to me, and if you don't, goodbye. Living without expectations. You know, I learned that by doing those steps. Like, I shouldn't be operating in this world with expectation, a sense of entitlement. When am I going to get mine? If I truly believe that God will provide all my needs, then I'm always lacking. I'm never lacking. And I haven't lacked. The only time I've lacked is when I lacked in my thinking. You know, so I have to always be mindful of where my thinking is at. What a gift. You know, if you had told me that this definitely wasn't a chapter in my story of life, that I'd be up in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, sharing my experience, strength, and hope on a Saturday night. Definitely not. But I'm really grateful it's one that God written in for me. You know, to have this sense of being. I'm a courageous person now. I can suit up and show up wherever I'm asked to be. I have a calmness about me that I did not know was a thing. I rarely get rattled. Rarely get rattled. I have no anger within my heart. I don't live in any resentments. That man that is raising my children, I pray for him every single day, and I thank him for loving our girls. I thank God for putting a loving man in my children's lives. I couldn't ask for anything more for that. So, I practice on the daily all the things it says in the big book. Service, fellowship, and recovery. So the fellowship part, I would love to say a saying that was said to me, but I was told I couldn't curse, so I'll share it with you afterwards. You know, the fellowship is this. Fellowship is this. You know, the work is carrying that message that's in the big book. You know, I'd heard someone say, you know, the biggest secret in AA for a very long time has been the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the message that it contains in it. And I will tell you, for sometimes I will go into places and I don't hear the message. You know, the message in the book is what saves us. The message in the book is what helps us get relieved from the bondage of self. And until we get released from the bondage of self, we're still us walking around this room in this world with our own demands still. Our wants. Me, 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 me. So I do meetings a couple times a week. I sponsor people, and I sponsor anybody that God presents me to sponsor. You know, I truly believe that we go upwards to people that for some reason we feel we are meant to. So whoever that may be, I sponsor. I practice these principles to the best of my ability in all my affairs. I am a very kind, loving, and generous boss to my employees. They can come to me with anything. I have no judgment. My place is to help people, not to hurt them. You know, apparently, if you're sitting here, you're part of God's plan for the greater good. So everything that happens as part of the big plan. Like, we all have something to give in that aspect. You know, so what is my job on the daily? My job on the daily is to do the right thing. My job on the daily is to be authentic. I have to radically accept each day exactly how my life is. Anytime that I'm not easy or I'm feeling discontent, it's because I'm lacking acceptance or I'm lacking gratitude. And I have to get squared back on those things. You know, is every day great for me? No, but they're pretty darn good. You know, do I have moments of sadness? Absolutely. You know, sadness is one of those emotions that we get gifted back in sobriety. And I had to be taught by my sponsor there's a difference between sadness and self-pity. You know, it's very confusing when everybody's running around. You should be joyous and happy and free all the time. No. We can be joyous and happy and free. And we actually can be sad on the same day and experience joy. That's my story. And I think that's all I got. I'm an alcoholic and my name is Kristen.
Let's give Kristen another round of applause. My name is Nick. I'm an alcoholic. And we mentioned before, the Food and Fellowship always starts at 8 o'clock. Please come even earlier. We're here at 7:15, 7:30. Come early, join us, socialize with us, get to know people. If you need help, please grab somebody after the meeting. There's tons of people who are willing to help people, sponsor people, just teach you a little bit about the big book of AA and see what recovery is all about. I'd like to thank our kitchen help tonight, Howard and Annette. Awesome job. Thank you, Howard. And it's customary to form a line. Our speakers come at their own time and expense, so we usually form a line in the front right here and thank them on a personal level. What an excellent message of hope and recovery. With that, next week we are going to be dressing in green for remembrance of the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you're here next week, wear some green. Just a side note there. We do have our hoodies available also, hot pink and black, and t-shirts too. If you are interested in one of those, we have those for sale. And come see us after the meeting. And if you care to join us, we'll circle up and say the Lord's Prayer. Okay, we'll have a brief moment of silence for anybody out there suffering. Followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into